We import TensorFlow as TF. Then we print out the TensorFlow version that we are using. We are using TensorFlow 1.0.1. In this video, we're going to create an identity matrix using the TensorFlow I functionality. Alright, let's get started. The first of our two example TensorFlow identity matrices will be of size 2. We create it using the TensorFlow I functionality and assign it to the Python variable ident underscore matrix underscore x underscore 1. So we see tf.eye parentheses 2. That's the size 2. Next, let's print out the identity matrix example1 Python variable to see what we have. We see that it is a TensorFlow tensor. It's an I/matrix diagonal. The shape is 2 by 2, and the data type is float 32. Notice that TensorFlow assumes that we're creating a square matrix which has the same number of rows as columns, and so by giving it a size of 2, when we define it, it created a 2 by 2 matrix. The second example will also be a TensorFlow identity matrix of size 2. Only this time, rather than having float 32 numbers, it'll be composed of integers. So we create the second example using the TensorFlow I functionality and assign it to the Python variable ident underscore matrix underscore x underscore 2. You can see that we pass the size 2, and this time our data type, our D type, is going to be int 32. Now that we have that, let's print out the identity matrix example2 Python variable to see what we have. And we see the same thing. It's a TensorFlow tensor, I1, matrix diag, shape is 2 by 2. This time the data type is int 32, whereas before it was float 32. And that's because when we defined it, we told it that we wanted the data type to be int 32. Now that we have created our TensorFlow variables, it's time to run the computational graph. So we launch the graph in a session. Then we initialize all the global variables in the graph. We have 2 variables, so those will be the ones that are initialized. Let's now print our first TensorFlow identity matrix, which had the data type of float 32. We see a 2 by 2 matrix where the diagonal entries have the number 1 and the rest of the entries are 0. Note that all the numbers have a decimal point to show they are indeed float 32 numbers. Next, let's print our second TensorFlow identity matrix, which had the data type of int 32. We see a 2 by 2 matrix where the diagonal entries have the number 1 and the rest of the entries are 0. Only this time, there are no decimal places, which means they are indeed int 32 numbers. Finally, we close the TensorFlow session to release the TensorFlow resources used with the session. And that is how you create an identity matrix using the TensorFlow I functionality.